So basically, we are in this unit, we will be talking about the features of good and effective messages in the process of communication. So we understand that, when we are talking about media literacy, it is something where we are trying to focus or understand the way the messages have been produced, how they have been processed, and how they are being reached to the audience. As part of that one, today our topic is about how the process and the message in the process of communication can take place, and if it is a good and effective message, what impact it can leave. So to understand that one, we have to first talk about the communication. If you just go back, recall yourself, what is communication? So we understand that communication is SMCR model, where you have a sender, message, receiver, and a channel. Fine. So that means any message is being produced so that a receiver is being received, and in the process, the system is that there is a content that has to be produced that should be applicable or being understood by the receiver, firstly. Secondly, though the content is received, what is more important is that there needs to be a channel. So in this world where you have n number of technological adaptations, and inventions, the media messages are easy to be produced and easy to be circulated and easy to be processed on. So in this manner, we can say that the message what we are trying to do, it has to have a suitable content, so that it has to be decoded, and the responses should be in a whatever the intended manner. So it is very important for the mass comm students to understand the meaning and nature of media messages and the role played by different media vehicles in carrying these messages. Firstly, let us understand how the message generation process happens in the process of communication. So, as we said, that is sender, message, and all those things. So, by definition, what is a message? A message is a compilation of information. It could be either visual, it could be verbal, or it could be numerical, that can be written and read, or it can be images, it can be spoken, it can be video recorded, it can be digitally analyzed, and a number. How your creativity will usher in, that way you will be doing. You can create your message. So here, depending upon your audience, depending upon your targeted receivers, for example, if it is an advertising company, then they have their own target audience defined. If it is a political message oriented, then their audience is totally defined. However, we see that messages may be for informal speech. It can go through the mail. It can be a post, it can be a story or an article. And yeah. So that way we see that,
Excuse me, ma'am. Ma'am, please tell me the page number. Actually, it is not matching. The unit is different in our syllabus.
This is media literacy class, right? Firstly, you refer to you refer to the media literacy book. Your SEM-4, no?
It's SEM-2, madam.
SEM-2,
Yes, madam. We are SEM.
SEM-2.
Is it so?
My
Yes,
madam,
ma'am.
Amjad.
Myself, Dayanand, ma'am. Semester 2.
It's Nafisa, ma'am. It's SEM-2 class. We supposed to attend first period.
Media ethics and laws, SEM-2.
Media laws and ethics.
Let me check it out. See. Okay.
So from the from the beginning, I was searching your unit, but I did not find that one.
Correct. Actually, the login went wrong. We will have our class, but okay. 1 second, let me check the timetable. Media laws and ethics. At 10:30 only we have your class, no? Okay.
Yes, madam. So fifth unit is different in our.
No. There's a small confusion that has come. As you said, it is correct. I will stop the sharing.
मैडम आपका जो है ना 12 बजे के बाद है मैडम सेम 4
मीडिया लिटरेसी का हाँ वही
12 से 1 बजे है
Yeah. I'll just share another thing. Yeah? Oh, every time the first is SEM-4, no? So it might be in that process. I didn't notice.
आपका फर्स्ट सेम में दोपहर का था मैडम इसलिए बोल के आप कंफ्यूज हो गए सर
हाँ वो ये फर्स्ट सेम नहीं इवन आप अपने को ऑफलाइन क्लासेस हम ले रहे हैं तो पहले सेकेंड ईयर्स थे फिर बाद में फर्स्ट ईयर्स था मेरे को
हाँ मैडम
Good thing you have reminded. We have completed this Press Council Act also.
से बुक पब्लिशन एक्ट
या सिविल राइट्स का भी हो गया
थर्ड यूनिट हो गया था मैडम थर्ड फोर्थ यूनिट चल रहा था
नहीं फोर्थ भी कंप्लीट करे राइट टू इंफॉर्मेशन एक्ट
So ma'am, 6.3 complete or 6.3 point.
सॉरी मा
6th unit 6.3.
fifth is completed. Yeah,
Yes,
this
ma'am.
is also completed.
We are dealing. Last class.
Anyhow, we'll start with fifth unit. Those who have missed, I think they can as well attend it. No, this RTI Act we have finished.
yes madam
Yeah, Official Secrets Act also we finished. Cyber laws.
no madam it's not ये नहीं हुआ मैडम
ये करें ना इंटेलेक्चुअल प्रॉपर्टी राइट्स एक्ट करें कॉपीराइट एक्ट करें
एक्चुअली मेरे बुक्स है ना मैडम आप दिए थे ना वो मेरे
हाँ
दोस्त के बैग में चले गए
हम तो
नहीं
आपको
तो मैं
पहुंचा
बोल
देंगे
लेता था मैडम
anyhow we will just revise this RTA एक cyber laws complete करके then we will go to this laws relating to the press even we finished this one indecent representation contempt of court also indecent representation of women act also last Sunday when you hosted the farewell and freshers party no that day Nafisa नहीं there was another one gentleman
नफीसा ही मैडम उन्होंने थे क्लास में
उस दिन थे
हाँ थे मैडम
हाँ is Nafisa there so we will be starting block 3 media industry codes yeah this is unit 7 is what we are supposed to take do you want me to revise unit 6 and 7 we'll revise in the last class
Yes, ma'am.
yeah we'll go as of now with this media industry codes
Yes, ma'am.
yeah so here basically this unit will highlight about the key elements of professional code of conduct it tries to delineate the relationship between press freedom and national interest. And it talks about the do's and don'ts in covering conflicts, and explains the role of the press in safeguarding human rights. So we have to understand why are we talking about this, because we see that, the media being a major part of the democracy, in promotion of the democracy, it plays a very important role. And as part of that, there are some ethical and professional codes been framed by different professional associations, as we had PCI, Press Council of India. Yeah. So there are many associations that work for the ethical and, accurate and fair journalism. So which give a set of guidelines that reflects the concerns of the time. Yeah, and it is also relevant to the present situation that we are in. So the student is expected to note the emphasis of each code and relate this to the circumstances in which it might be applied. So now we see that, there's so much of furore over the media. So why is it? We feel that, what they are presenting is not against the principles of journalism. Yeah, basically, what are the canons and principles of journalism? Clarity, brevity, objectivity, yeah, and all those things. So because we feel that, fair and balance also is part of the principles of journalism. As such, if all these are not being followed, we see that, there is always a controversy. But at the same time, the Constitution has provided us freedom of speech and expression, where it gives a scope for everybody to speak. However, media is something where has a direct influence on a viewer or a reader or an audience. So there are certain things that we need to follow as a media practitioner. So one of the association called as All India Newspaper Editors Conference. Yeah. So AINEC, that is All India Newspaper Editors Conference. It
Hello?
issued in 1968 a code of ethics for the press related. Yeah.
Ma'am.
Yeah, ma'am.
Madam, this is first class of me, madam. మేము విజయవాడ నుంచి పాల్గొంటున్నాము. మాకు ఇదే మొదటి క్లాస్ మేడం. మీరేమో 5-6 లెసన్లు అయినట్టు చెప్తున్నారు.
అవునమ్మా, ఎందుకంటే 4 ఆఫ్లైన్ క్లాసెస్ అయిపోయినాయి కదా.
మరి మధ్యలో కల్పించే మమ్మల్ని ఇబ్బంది కదా మేడం. అప్పుడే చెప్తే మేము కూడా అటెండ్ అయ్యాము.
అదే అంటున్నాను, డోంట్ బి వరీడ్. ఇప్పుడు మనకి ఎట్లయినా 4 ఆన్లైన్ క్లాసెస్ ఉన్నాయి కదా. మనం 3rd బ్లాక్ లో వచ్చేసాము. 2nd క్లాస్ లో మనం అవి కంప్లీట్ చేసుకొని లాస్ట్ 2 క్లాస్ లేకపోతే 1 క్లాస్ లో ఇఫ్ యూ వాంట్ వీ కెన్ ట్రై టు కవర్ ఇట్. టిల్ దట్ టైమ్ వాట్ యూ క్యాన్ డూ ఇస్ దట్ యూ క్యాన్ రెఫర్ అండ్ స్పెసిఫికల్లీ మీకు ఏదైనా డౌట్, ఏదైనా కన్ఫ్యూజన్ ఉంటే అట్లా మీరు అడిగితే దెన్ ఐ విల్ బి ఇన్ అ పొజిషన్ టు క్లారిఫై దట్ వన్.
ఓకే మేడం. ఇప్పుడు ఏ యూనిట్ మేడం? 5th యూనిట్ 6th యూనిట్ లెక్కారా మేడం?
దిస్ ఈజ్ 7th యూనిట్ 7.
ఓకే, 6 యూనిట్స్ కంప్లీటెడ్ మేడం ఇప్పటికైతే.
యా
ఓకే మేడం, క్యారీ ఆన్ మేడం.
Yeah. Okay, so no need to worry. We will just try to last class no, we will try to revise and also try to cover. Meeru whosoever has a doubt, please make a note of those, particularly into the you write it so that we can be more specific and others can also gain from our conversation.
ఓకే మేడం, ఓకే మేడం.
అయితే అట్లా ఉంటే మీరు ఆ గ్రూప్ ఉంది కదా మనకు JHMC అదే JMC అట్లా ఆ గ్రూప్ లో మీరు పెట్టండి 1 day before, so that I can also prepare.
ఓకే మేడం.
రెఫరెన్స్ చేయాలంటే అప్పుడు కష్టం అవుతుంది కదా.
ఓకే మేడం,
సరేనా? సో getting back to the code of ethics, in 1968 the All India Newspaper Editors Conference has issued a few code of ethics specially relating to the reporting and commenting on communal incidents. Yeah. 1 second. Are you able to see the screen?
No, ma'am.
I'm just sharing it. Yeah, Sunil?
Ma'am, display name yours
Yes, media okay, media literacy it is coming, huh?
No. US is now semester 2.
Yeah. There was a confusion because
media laws and ethics.
Yeah, I'm taking the same class, media laws and ethics.
Okay, and another thing is display name. Your display name should be yours only. Some mobile numbers, otherwise not like that.
Okay.
It is displaying it is streaming in the YouTube.
Yeah, so it is media literacy, no? Okay, I'll just see.
Media literacy, not madam. Media
laws. I know. Yeah.
Semester 2.
Okay.
And your display name should be yours only.
My name.
As title.
Oh.
Means Parveen Sultana, same.
Okay.
Right.
All the technological problems. Yeah, are you able to see?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, madam.
We'll just start it. So what is the code that has been issued is that it tries to set some values, and it says that a free press can flourish only in a free society. Yeah. And when we are saying a free society, then communalism is a very delicate fabric of our society, but then the communalism is also a risky kind of an area where the nation solidarity lies on it. Therefore, the press has a very important role in the and has a fundamental objectives as we see in our constitution, wherein we need to abide and safeguard our secularism, protect our democracy, maintain our national unity, and also the integrity and the rule of law. So, the duty of the press, according to the code, emphasizes to promote unity and cohesion in the hearts and minds of the people, and refrain from, that is, stop from the publishing materials that might excite communal passions or inflame communal hatred. So, here we see that the press should adhere to the following guidelines. First one, what is the guideline? The editorial comments are other expressions of the opinion, where in terms of articles, letters to the editor or any form should be restrained from free attacks against the leaders and the communities, and there should be no incitement to the violence. Yeah. Then the generalized allegations casting doubts and aspirations on, related to the patriotism and loyalty of any community should be protected. Likewise, we see that the allegations on any community of unfair discrimination should be avoided, and the truth should not be suppressed, and a deliberate slanting of a communal incident should be avoided. Other one is that we see that use of incidents involving loss of life, lawlessness, arson should be described. So can anybody quote the recent example related to the incidents involving loss of life, lawlessness, arsons?
Manipur clashes, ma'am.
Yeah, exactly. What is the trend you see in the reporting? Unfortunately, till 2 months we didn't see any kind of a reporting. Yeah, and even now also we don't see so much of reporting, but then if they have been showed, in this way where we see that there is should not be heavily displayed, but then we see that they try to focus, the media is trying to focus on these issues. So items of news calculated to make it should be the news should be related to the peace and harmony and help in the restoration and maintenance of law and order. The greatest caution should be exercised in the selection and publication of pictures, cartoons, and poems to avoid any kind of hatred. Names of communities should be mentioned, should not be mentioned, nor term majority or minority. Communities be ordinarily used in the course of reports. Yeah. The source from which usually casualty figures are obtained should always be indicated. No fact or figure should be published without complete verification. However, if you see the publication of the facts or figures if they are having an effect of communal passion, those should not be given. In case you might have a thorough report, but then by putting that huge number, if you feel that there is a risk of a communal flare up, that has to be avoided. If you see all those things, somehow we feel that, we are in a contradictory world, isn't it? See, the what Odisha related railways, now Dayanand sir should be more, should be an appropriate person to speak about what has happened. And being a media student, you should be more commenting on that one, that how the media has reported. More than the incident, there were many issues that were being talked about the religious angle they have got it, and the other angles they have got it. So we have to stick wherein your information should be more of helpful to the viewers rather than creating any kind of controversies. Then we have Editors Guild. This Editors Guild was founded in 1978 with the twin objectives of protecting press freedom and for raising the standards of editorial leadership of newspapers and magazines. So when we are talking of 1978, then that means what? The press, that is the print media, was more into the circulation than the electronic media. So to raise the standards of editorial leadership of newspaper and magazines, this editor guilds was set up. So eminent editors of the day felt that there was a lack of an organized forum of editors, and this was the main reason for setting up. And also the national emergency that was been there during the emergency, and the way the press was being suppressed during that one, also led to the setup of this Editors Guild. So when was the national emergency? From 1975 to 77. So this was formed after that only. Yeah. So it talks about verifying the facts and taking out inaccuracies from the field reports with the help of adequate reference libraries. So that means whenever you are giving a report, it should be verified thoroughly and should have an adequate reference. You just, if you are having a references of, like, for example, let us talk about this Odisha's rail incidents. So, apart from that daily report, you try to give an analysis that, how the railway accidents have been happened, for example. Yeah. So in that manner, what we see that, when you are trying to present any report or trying to give any information, you need to thoroughly verify the facts. And at the same time, you have to use the reference of the library. Then you have to see that, you have to segregate facts from direct or implied comments therein and put the facts in the space and the time meant for the facts. You have to confine the comment on the space and identify it. Basically, it means to say that, you cannot have your own comments, but rather it should be based on the facts, and there should be a measure to right to publish against the relevant public interest. It should be mostly catering to the public interest and take away which is not essential to the story and give a fair opportunity to the aggrieved party. That means the sufferers. Then you have to call for an apology in case if it wrote something wrong. Avoid undue publicity to the personal affairs of a personality. Avoid exaggeration of the story. You have to see that, allegations against action of public servants and duties should be doubly checked. Yeah. Then suppression of facts under pressure is dereliction of the duty. That means you cannot suppress the facts. Yes, we understand that, talking about the public officers and their duties, we need to cross check, but that doesn't mean that, you should suppress the facts and statements and one. So we see that, anonymity should not be allowed only on the condition where it has some kind of a risk to the personality, because the source of information is very important and credible to our daily lives. So we see that scenes of personal grief are a delicate matter to handle, and they should never be shown in the name of human interest. The way the dead, unfortunate things happen, where you see that, unfortunately, there are so many road accidents. You just imagine in the morning you get up and see such kind of so harsh kind of pictures. So, but in the name of the human interest, we cannot see that kind of a grief being carried forward after reading the news. So, in writing about the religious controversies, all parties should see that, there should be a fair reporting. And while in reporting crime, particularly crime are related to the children, should be taken utmost care. And the alleged criminal, and the victim and the witness must be identified with utmost care. Yeah. So checkbook journalism there's a concept of checkbook journalism. That means it is a paid journalism. So when you're talking about checkbook journalism, the principles of journalism like fairness, balance, objectivity, and brevity and clarity all go missing. So we have to see that, they should we shouldn't mix the checkbook journalism when we are writing, especially the general stories. But then there is an scope for the financial reporting and for the business reporting, because they have to pitch in their products and all those things. But that doesn't mean that you need to take money and write, but whatever you write, you should write in the interest of the public. Information should not be obtained through the use of just listening or through the devices, but it should be in a proper manner. So journalism must not accept favors, should not seek or accept favors, wherein we are not trying to write thoroughly about the facts and information. So that way we see that the Editors Guild has seen, because what happened was that during the emergency they were under the pressure and their freedom was curtailed. So some had to, the newspaper organizations were getting seized. Seeing all the situations, some of the news media organizations were abiding to the government and trying in their favor. So taking into those considerations, the Editors Guild was formed. The other one is the Broadcasting Code, which was adopted by the Fourth Asian Broadcasting Conference in 1962. It is listed, it has the principles. The principle is talking about the electronic media. So it has to ensure the objective presentation of news in a fair and unbiased manner. It should promote the advancement of education and culture. Then it should raise and maintain high standards of decency and in all program. Yeah. It should promote the communal harmony and should build a religious tolerance and also have an international understanding. And it should see that controversial public issues should be somewhere impartial. And at the last, which is most important, it should respect the human rights and dignity. So apart from that, we also see that, you have Cable Television Network Rules in 1994, which has a programming and advertising code under Rule 6, which talks about that, the cable service cannot offend against good taste or decency, because cable is something where the cable operator can have his own channel and can have his own programs. So taking into that consideration, now with this technology and all those things, I think only into the interior villages and remote places we have the cable. Otherwise we see that we are mostly with the latest technology. Yeah. However, we see that the cable program should not contain criticism of friendly countries. It should not attack on religions and the communities. It should not have obscene or defamatory. It should encourage it should not encourage violence, and should not have an contempt of court, and should not go against the integrity of president and judiciary, and it should not affect the integrity of the nation. And talking about the segments of public and moral life of the country, and it should not encourage the superstitions or blind belief. This point remains to be a big kind of a debate. There are many movies, many serials that we see that where it is trying to portray the superstition. Yeah. It should not denigrate a woman or denigrate a children, or it should not have a visual or a words which reflect a slandering, ironically, and snobbish attitude in the portrayal of certain ethnic and linguistic or regional groups. Then we also have a Cinematography Act in 1952, which we read previously. Yeah, and cable is not suitable for unrestricted public exhibition. Then we have News Broadcasting Standards Author. Is basically it is a complaint redressal mechanism which has been put in place by the News Broadcaster Association, where we see a collective of 26 private sector news and current affairs broadcasters are part of it. The NBA was framed as a set of editorial guidelines for its member channels, where it talks about the ensuring impartiality and objectivity in reporting. It ensures the neutrality. It ensures when the reporting on crime and the crime and violence are not glorified. So you can see that, all whatever the association have come, they are talking about, not glorifying the violence, crime, or inciting the communal harmony, or trying to have a personal target. Otherwise, also as a person, as a common person, also we have to avoid it. But being a media professional, we should see that we are following and abiding by this code, because there have been cases where people have been cross the rules and regulations. So this is the reason where we see that these associations have come with all the particular laws. And ultimately, any broadcast or print or any kind of a media has to see that the national security should not be endangered. Yeah. Then you have Broadcast Editors Association. Yeah, this is the latest one, which was being started in 2017. It regularly issued statements on media and journalism related issues till its 18. Information about its membership, objectivities, and activities is not available except for the group post on its Facebook page. So, being in the innocent stages, it is still to develop. Then moving on, talking about the press freedom and national interests. Why are we talking so much about the national integration? How we see that, through press, we can protect our national freedom. I mean to say national integrity. So, press freedom is something where we have as part of the Constitution under Article 19(1)(a), yeah, which guarantees freedom of speech and expression to all citizens. Yeah. The news media has, however, faced pressure, intimidation, and threats in the name of national interest. So, when we are talking national interest, how do we define the national interest? So, it is basically a sense of public interest in terms of often to represent what the government wants in a given situation. For example, in 2019, the PCI represented press freedom and national interest at two values that need to be balanced each other. In this, we see that there was a case before the Supreme Court in Anuruddha Basin's petition seeking removal of media restrictions in J&K. However, we see that the council said the restrictions were to protect the integrity and sovereignty of the nation, and it would like to present its views before the court to assist it in deciding the petition. So here we see that the interest of the freedom of press as well as in the name of the national interest. In this case, we have seen that the integrity and sovereignty of the nation is implied in terms of national interest. So basically, it is referring to the media restrictions that have happened in the J&K. So in the recent also, we see that, in Manipur also, there was a restriction on the internet and all those things. So why it is being curtailed? Because they are trying to save the integrity and protect the sovereignty of the nation. That is why we see that, these laws are being framed. So when we say national interest, so national interest in a wide scope for meaning, it means different things in different contexts. It is not only the term used as a counter to the press freedom. In the aftermath of surgical attacks in 2016, NDTV announced that it would not air any views contradicting or questioning the versions put by the army or other officials. It labeled the policy as India above politics. Here, we see that the freedom of the press to raise question has been given up in the name of India. which could have as well been national interest. So depending on the prevailing situations, we see that, in terms of the national security, we have to see that, you have to safeguard your sovereignty and democracy. So in the recent years, these, unfortunately, the national security and adding to to that is the fake news that has become a more problematic aspect. So how do we solve it? So that association will definitely think about it. Then also covering war, communal rights, and insurgency. So when we are saying all these issues, basically we are relating it to a conflict zone. So when we are talking about a conflict zone, these include basically difficulties in reaching the key people, facing suspicion about from both sides of the conflict. Yeah, let us take the best example of Ukraine. Yeah, so Ukraine thing. So in that Ukraine, now you see it's basically a conflict zone. Now here, when we talk about it is very difficult to reach to the Putin or to Zenkosi, whatever his name is. So when we talk about all those things, we have to see that, while reporting war in the early stages of covering emergency, it could be related to the terrorist, it could be disaster or major accidents. It is particularly important to give the source of information. So in reporting, we feel that we see that, the source of reporting is very important. That is the reason why in the previous session we mentioned that, anonymity should be to protect a person from the risk, but it cannot be for any false or wrong claiming. One second. So given the current popularity of the social media, reporters should be aware that the comments they make on social media should have a weightage for publishing. Yeah. Reporters should bear in mind the requirement for due accuracy and impartiality all the time, sir. There are special sensitive areas, for example, the security of operational military plants, avoiding naming casualties until the next of kin have been informed, and handling rumors. So these are all the areas that require the present attention of the media reporters, especially those who are working with the social media, because the reach is too easy. So, for example, if you are reporting about the possible terrorist act, it should be timely and responsible, bearing in mind the requirement for due accuracy and impartiality. Yeah. Terrorism is a difficult kind of a thing with a significant political overtones, and is therefore a maximum care is required in the use of language that carries value judgments. Reporters should not use term terrorist without attribution unless an authoritative source describes it thus. So when we see there's a news breaking, all those things, the reporters generally jump to the conclusion. So that has to be avoided until it comes from an official source, whether it was really an act of terrorism by the official. If reporters ever receive a warning or other credible or specific threat about violence, blast, the first priority should be it should be passed on to the appropriate authorities. Yeah, not that you break the story without knowing the parent department. So in the case of hijacking, kidnapping, hostage taking, sieges, bombing, and other similar events, reporters should always be aware that what is being broadcast, either directly or indirectly, or by the perpetrators. It is important to report demands in context and should also consider carefully the ethical, legal, and practical issues raised by providing a platform to hijackers, kidnappers, or hostage takers, especially if they make direct contact. So here you have to play a very positive role so that you come out of the conflict or a problem easily. Then this is about how the press should act during the communal and war reporting. Then what is the role of a press in reporting the human rights? Yeah. As we understand, human rights are the rights that are matter to all the human beings, irrespective of citizenship, race, nationality, ethnicity, language, religion. Yeah. It includes the right to life and liberty. Yeah. and also the freedom from slavery and torture, freedom of opinion and expression, the right to work and education, and many more. So that means we understand that it is a right that has been entitled to everyone without discrimination. So, and after the Declaration of Human Rights in 1948, that is Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948, governments across the world have integrated human rights principle into policies and laws. Yeah. The National Human Rights Commission and various state level commissions are the evidence of this institutionalization of human rights. That is what we read in the previous chapter about human rights and the state human rights. So, seeing all the discrepancies and the discriminations that has been happening, we see the associations and the institutions coming up for that one. So, keeping in mind the trend, the coverage of human rights in news media has also become a mainstream. For example, police encounters are frequently dealt, and they have been basically mostly, skeptically been produced, and questions are raised for the human rights perspective. And if you just recall, we had that Preeti Reddy, Dr. Preeti Reddy, wherein the CP was being asked by the human rights why the encounters have been happened. So, as frequently, the consciousness of human right is not uniform, unfortunately, in the media. So, not all political players abide by human rights wholeheartedly, unfortunately. So, some see the principles of Western imports and therefore a sort of misfit to the Indian society. Most worrying aspect is the attention the social media is beginning to get. It's a consequent power to shape public opinion. Then it is vulnerable to manipulation because of differences of opinions and all those things where you don't have an objectivity. It is vulnerable to the manipulation. In other words, we see the social media trends and popularity are susceptible for being artificially driven by the political or other forces, or which may not be subscribed to the idea of human rights. So that way we see that with the social media also, now right now we are in the same situation where the social media is more prominent than our traditional media, and that is creating lots of chaos and lots of confusion and lots of disharmony, and also reporting about the political activities. However, we see that the fact remains that the India has been a signatory to human rights conventions and has created institutional infrastructure and is committed to protect the human rights. Most of the principles underlying these rights are also shared by the constitutional rights. Therefore, it is imperative for the news media to support human rights. So, as a human right, as a media reporter, you should also see that how the human rights are being protected, and your media should be a platform to raise in the issues and concern of the person or the humans that are being suffered. So, thus we come to the end of this chapter. Then we have Information Technology Act. So, do you have any questions or any doubts on the topics we have discussed now?
No, ma'am.
Yeah. So shall we move to this Information IT Act 2008?
Yes, please.
So this chapter is basically trying to explain the salient features of IT Act. It is trying to explain the importance of digital and electronic signature. It is also trying to make us understand the concept of electronic governance, that is e-governance, and discuss the access, the possible outcomes of penalties and their adjudications and offenses. We see that, in the current age of explosion of these technologies, IT Act is more important and it is significantly contributing to the services sector. Why the world has drastically changed? Because of the IT, information technology, technologies that have been developed and invented. So, it can be related to the sectors related to the health, education, governance. Everywhere we see that, IT has been revolutionizing the common man's life. So we see that when we have all those things, there are possibilities of adversaries and problems and issues also. However, to avoid these problems, there is a separate act on IT that was enacted in 2000. Yeah. So that means the act has come from 2000 and has been enacted and was later amended and make it more user friendly. We see that, all new things like electric governance has also been part of our common life. This act was also has taken place, and it also deals with the crucial aspects like digital signature, electronic signature, and we see that, there is a violation of the provisions of the act. The act also contains a host of penalties, procedures that have also been incorporated. So for that, first let us understand what is the IT Act 2000 when it was first been implemented. It was notified on October 17, 2000, which was dealing with the cybercrime and electronic commerce in India. In 1996, the United Nations Commission on International Trade Law, that is UNCITRAL, adopted the model law on electronic commerce, that is the e-commerce, to bring uniformity in the law in different countries. So this was not related only to the India, but it is so universal because IT is something where the world has become a global village. So the General Assembly of United Nations recommended that all countries must consider the model before making changes to their own laws. In that, India became the 12th country to enable cyber law after it passed the Information Technology Act 2000. At the time of the first draft, the Ministry of Commerce, Government of India, named it as E-Commerce Act in 1998. Later on, it redrafted it to Information Technology Bill in 99 and then passed in May 2000. So we see that, the IT Act 2000 provides legal recognition to the transaction done with the help of electronic exchange of data and electronic means of communication or electronic commerce. So basically where you use the electronic gadgets or electronic, you do electronic communication. As part of these facilities, it provides alternatives to paper-based communication and information storage to facilitate the electronic filing of documents with government agencies. With the onset of this act, the IPC 1860, the Indian Evident Act 1872, the Bankers Book Evident Act 1891 and Reserve Bank Act 1934 were also amended. So the objectives of the act were to grant legal recognition to all the transactions done via electronic exchange of data or other electronic means of communication, or which is basically the e-commerce, where they are using as a method of communication. It talks about giving legal recognition in digital signatures. It tries to facilitate the electronic filing. It facilitates the electronic storage of data. It gives legal sanction and also facilitates the electronic transfers of funds between banks and financial institutions. The Act talks about grants legal. It is giving a legal recognition to the bankers of the Reserve Bank for keeping the books of accounts in the electronic form. And there are certain features of IT Act 2000, that is, all electronic contacts made through secure electronic channels are legally valid. So it should be through electronic channels. Then the digital signatures are legally recognized. Then electronic records and digital signatures are provided complete security. It is a procedure for the appointment of adjudicating officers for holding inquiries under the Act. It facilitates to establish a cyber regulatory appellate tribunal to handle tribunal to handle all appeals made against the order of the controller or adjudicating officer. The Act also has a feature of order passed by this cyber appellate tribunal that can be challenged in the court. The Act applies to offences or contraventions committed outside India, and senior police officers and other officers can enter any public places, search and arrest without warrant. It facilitates for the constitution of Cyber Regulations Advisory Committee to advise the central government and the controller. So there are also you know, penalties and also the punishable rules in case if you are offending or you are trying to cross the laws, commit any kind of a mistake. So according to the section 1(4) of the act, however, we see that according to the section 1(4) of the law, this act is not applicable to the negotiable instrument under Negotiable Instrument Act of 1881, then 1882 Powers of Attorney Act, then creation of trust under the Indian Trust Act, execution of a will under the Indian Succession Act of 1925, entering into the contract for the sale of conveyance of immovable property, or any such documents or transaction as may be notified by the central government. So this is all about the IT Act 2000. Then digital signature. What exactly is the digital signature? So under IT Act, any subscriber may authenticate an electronic record by affixing his digital signature. Manually, physically, we do on a paper, but if it is related to the e-commerce or which is with the help of the IT, then definitely there is a need for the digital signature. So it is talking about that one. The signature shall authenticate the document to identify the person and to make the contents of the document binding legally on person putting digital signature. This process involves the usage of asymmetric crypto system and has functions which develop, envelop and transfer the electronic record into another electronic record. Hash function means an algorithm mapping or translation of one sequence or bits into another, and generally smaller bits. So this is some technical. However, we see that the IT Act 2000 empowers the central government to prescribe the type of digital signature. It talks about the manner and format in which the signature should be affixed. It talks about the facilities through which it can identify the person who is affixing the digital signature. Then it talks about the control processes and procedures to ensure adequate integrity, security, and confidentiality of electronic records in any other matter which is necessary to give legal effect to the digital signatures. We see that under Section 5 of the Act gives legal recognition to the digital signature. So Section 15 deals with the process of securing digital signature. So in case tomorrow if you are into some electronic kind of an transaction, then how do you go by the digital signature is what it is trying to basically explain about it one. Then when we are talking about the digital signatures, there should be a legal recognition. So anybody, how do we affirm that it is of that particular person or particular organization or on the behalf of that one? So representation upon issuance of digital certificate. So in case if you are applying, it has to comply with the provision of this act. The subscriber holds the private key corresponding to the public key, the functioning key pair. They have all those things. The information contained in the digital signature certificate is accurate and it has a knowledge of any material. So there are certain ways where they generate the key pair. It talks about the duties of the subscriber. It talks about the control of a private key. It talks about the suspension of digital signature certificate and revocation of a digital signature. So this is all about the digital signature. So when we are saying the digital signature, so it is just not that you put your signature with the PDF and all those things, but it has a proper mechanism and a system where you have to follow all these procedures and ensure that even your signature doesn't go for forgery or something. There are certain rules and regulations as part of the IT Act 2000. So this is how we see that, the first step in IT Act 2000 was the act that emphasized on the digital or the electronic signature. So this is all about that one. As we have less time, I will not start the other topic. In the next class, we'll continue with the electronic signature.
Okay,
Fine?
madam.
Yeah,
Okay,
because
madam.
you have a next class, right?
Okay,
Yes,
ma'am.
yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if anything, please let me know.
Thank you, ma'am.
Discuss about the electronic signature and everything in the next class.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Meantime, if you have any doubt or anything to be discussed, you can discuss. You have other 5 minutes.
Ma'am, while writing the exam answers, is it necessary to put the act and laws in these answers and all?
Sorry, I didn't get your question, ma.
No, actually, I was asking about if we are writing answers now. So at that time, we have to specifically mention about act, about year and 1956 and all. This act has to be mentioned precisely, or we can write simply as a reference.
No. Any act has only validity with the year and the dates, isn't it? Because there is always a possibility of amendments. Now we will say that IT Act. So now basically your chapter is talking about IT Act 2008. But before that, we are trying to talk the act from its implementation, that is from 2000. So in that manner, specifically you need to mention. Now when we are if you write IT Act 2000, it is something where it is without amendments. But we had amendments in 2008, we have amendments in 2012, then we had amendments in the recent, after the corona also we had recent amendments. So might be we as a human being might not remember, but at least the act year of implementation should be remembered. And that is how you can differentiate, no?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So ensure to write at least the act and its implementation of the year, or the in case if it has been amended, you can mention amended, or if not, it is implemented, you can write it directly. But write the proper date so that it is answering in the proper context. Fine.
Without mentioning the year, it's not completed. Year is must mandatory.
Yeah. No, for example, let us take this IT Act only. So when we say IT Act, it was implemented in 2000, but from 2000 to 2024, we see there are many amendments that have been happening.
Year is mandatory.
Yeah. So when you are writing it, you have to write it with the year. So similarly, now sections and all those things are also mandatory, because each section will explain it. So you have to be more focused on what the topic you are reading, and accordingly you have to mention it. I hope I have clarified your doubt. Shall I end the session?
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes.
Thank you, madam.
Yeah. Thank you.
ఏం క్లాస్
ఛార్జింగ్ అని పెట్టుకుంటా.
నాకు కావాలి కదా పొద్దున్న నుంచి సాయంత్రం దాకా.
ఏం పెట్టినావు పేరు?
ఎట్లా నది అని పెట్టిన 12 గంటలకు ఉంది. ఇప్పుడు ఒక పావు గంట రెస్ట్ అనుకుంటా. ఎవరు రాలే ఇంకోసారి. అంటే కనెక్ట్ చేసుకోవాలి కదా. వినిపిస్తుంది. వినిపిస్తుంది. కూరకి కడుపు నొప్పి వస్తుంది నాకు. కాఫీ తాగినందుకు అరే ఏ మనిషివి నువ్వు? అన్ని ప్రెస్ అవుతున్నాయి. చదివించేటోడు కాదు నువ్వు. వెస్ట్గా చదివించే ఆశలు లేవు కానీ వేరే ఉన్నాయి. వేరే